Bring in Gabe Demenetti. He's a national political reporter for Politco, and he joins us from the Politico newsroom in Arlington, Virginia. Gabe, your first reactions to what you just heard?
Yeah, well, as you see, there are still a lot of questions to be asked about this. You know, some Republicans on the Hill are clearly feeling pretty good about the fact that they finally got this plan out there after basically 8 years of saying they're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. But as you saw from that from the news conference, there are still a lot of questions about how they're going to pay for it, how they're going to win over some of the more conservative members of the House, not to mention any Democrats whatsoever. So, you know, we'll see. This is going to be a long process, but it looks like this is going to be quite a political fight to come.
Yeah, definitely critics on both sides of the aisle at this point. Senator Rand Paul set to criticize the new Republican bill alongside the House Freedom Caucus this afternoon. So walk us through the Republican criticism of this legislation. And I understand there's probably a number of different sort of parties within the party in terms of what they don't like about this piece of legislation.
Absolutely, absolutely. There are a lot of different criticisms of this piece of legislation, and part of that is just because it's such a wide-ranging, prospect here to try and get rid of the health care law that's been in place for 8 years now. What a lot of them are saying is that this is Obamacare light. They don't like that there is, for example, 3 more years of Medicaid expansion. They don't like the idea of tax credits going to some of the lower income brackets. So what a lot of folks are saying, basically on the Hill, a lot of Republicans who are more conservative than the folks who introduced this bill is basically like, we want to get rid of Obamacare as much as the next guy, but this is not the right way to do it. And so what you're starting to see now is more and more people from outside think tanks, very influential conservative organizations like Heritage Action and other big groups like that starting to say, we want to get rid of Obamacare, but this is not the right way to do it.
It does seem, though, there is political pressure to try to get this moving along the more we talk about it. I do want to ask you, Republican Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah made some comments today about the new health care plan. It's receiving some criticism, what he had to say. I want to take a listen to what he had to say and then talk about it on the other side. Let's take a listen.
Access for lower income Americans doesn't equal coverage.
Well, we're getting rid of the individual mandate. We're getting rid of those things that people said that they don't want. And you know what? Americans have choices, and they've got to make a choice. And so maybe rather than getting that new iPhone that they just love and they want to go spend hundreds of dollars on that, maybe they should invest in their own health care. They've got to make those decisions themselves.
Chaffetz's remark there that Democrats seem to be jumping all over. What do you make of it?
Well, obviously what Democrats are saying is that it's pretty insensitive to assume that someone is choosing between, buying an iPhone and getting health care. But basically, this is a big political fight, and it's always going to be. Chaffetz in particular is seen as someone who is a big target of Democrats because he's very closely associated with the White House in many ways, and because he's in charge of a lot of the House investigations. So they're already primed to take him on. But listen, the reality is that there's never been, at least in the last few decades, a clean, straightforward healthcare fight. On Capitol Hill or in Washington overall. President Trump promised during the campaign to get rid of Obamacare, and now he's trying to do that. So Democrats are going to make this as difficult as possible for Republicans, and I think a lot of them are frankly feeling pretty good about their chances at least delaying this quite a while down the road.
And Donald Trump, of course, has been tweeting. He started tweeting yesterday about this piece of legislation. And then a couple of hours ago, he said, don't worry, getting rid of state lines, which will promote competition, will be phase 2 and 3 of health care rollout. You know, a lot of people, I would think a lot of his supporters expected a bill that was somewhat complete, and now we're hearing this is just one portion of it, and there's apparently at least 2 more phases before it's a done deal. Do you think his supporters are going to be patient?
Well, one thing that we've learned is that we don't really know how his supporters are going to react to a lot of these things. But you're right that this is not what he promised. And, we're seeing a lot of echoes or at least shades of the early days of the Obama administration when they promised health care reform and saw that it was a way more complicated prospect than they thought it was going to be. But yeah, you're right. In promising that there's going to be stage 2, 3, and 4, he's essentially projecting to the world that this is going to take some time. So, this is going to be complicated. This is going to be messy. And we're in for months at least of fighting on Capitol Hill over this.
Yeah, I think you're right. Gabe DeBenedetti, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.